everyone, thank you and welcome to our first ever Samsung Virtual Film Festival in partnership with PopSugar, Thrillist, and the Dodo. I'm Dolapo, an on-camera host, a video producer and director, and an overall film fanatic. Needless to say, I am so stoked to be here. Let's just start by saying 2020. Wow. Seriously, what a year it's been. A pandemic tearing through the entire world, quarantines, protests, riots, an election. I mean, we can all just say we need a break. We've been through a lot. One of the good parts of this year has been seeing the opportunity that has come from adversity. We're going to show a lot of that today within the 4 incredible shorts we are about to premiere. And beyond the inspiring and uplifting stories, the behind the scenes is just as impressive. Each of the featured filmmakers was tasked with producing their film with nothing but a phone. Because another thing that this time has taught us is that usually everything you need is right at your fingertips. For these filmmakers, it was the all-new Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G. We'll get to see more of that in a minute. But first, I'd like to introduce Sawyer Hartman. You may know him from YouTube or Instagram, where he has amassed millions of followers, sharing his films with a global audience. Let's welcome Sawyer.
Hey, Dolapo, thank you for the introduction. I personally think the magic of filmmaking is getting to tell our stories and, more importantly, connecting them with other communities around the globe. Every time someone watches some of my work and it either resonates with them or inspires them, it not only makes me feel great, but it reinforces why I choose to spend my life creating. That is why I'm particularly interested in seeing these films today. We've definitely been living through some unprecedented times, and I'm excited to see how those times have affected these films and how the films unfold, and to see the various perspectives our creators took both in front and behind the lens.
What we have in mind tonight is sort of a new idea, stories inspired by each of our digital media brands. It sounds a little funky, but it works. PopSugar, Thrillist, and the Dodo each have a different voice, and we wanted to showcase those in the films. Shot only using the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G, they all cover different aspects of living through this, pretty rough year. After each film, we'll join the filmmakers for a Q&A session and talk about their experiences, and we'll have members of the editorial team from each media brand share their insight on how they build stories. Hopefully, you'll take away some knowledge and inspiration from it all. Before we get into the films, I want to mention our partner for this event, Samsung. Obviously, without this technology, none of these films would be possible. We talked a little bit about how these films emphasize that you have all these tools right at your fingertips, but the Galaxy S20 FE really makes that clear. They've got all these great features for filmmakers like night mode, single take AI, and even a super steady stabilizer mode that smooths out your footage. As we watch the films, I just want to make a note of how this tech comes into play and allows our creators to produce such high quality work. So again, thank you to Samsung for making this cutting edge tech possible.
We're going to cover a ton of topics here today. An epidemiologist who used social media to inform people about COVID-19, friends who fell in love right before the pandemic hit, a hotel that turned its attention and resources to community service, and then finally, since we could all use some cute puppies in our lives, a rescue dog and his incredible foster dad, and how they were able to help each other during this difficult time.
To watch the first film with us tonight, we're going to be joined by a video producer from the Dodo. Welcome, Mackenzie Leedy.
Hey guys, I'm Mackenzie. I am a video producer at the Dodo, and I work on creating video content every day. I am really excited to be watching Thom's film today. Growing up with a camera in his hands, Thom learned how to make powerful images in moving pictures. Working up from time-lapse photographer to director of photography, he learned the value of being detail-oriented, patient, and above all, honest. By marrying his love for animals with his creativity, Thom has opened up a whole new world. I'd like to introduce you to the filmmaker, Thom McCallum, joining us from his home in California. Hey, Thom.
Hey, Mackenzie. Hey, Sawyer. How you doing?
Good.
Thank you for having me on. As a documentarian, we need to be flies on the wall. We need to be behind the scenes, if you will. And I was commissioned to make this short film for the Dodo using the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G. And it allowed me to be the fly on the wall as a one-man band. And it was just such a joy to follow the subject of the short film that you're going to watch. And, it's a beautiful thing to pack so many features into a powerhouse of a mobile phone, to allow me to really make the film that I wanted to make.
Awesome. Now we are going to check out our first film. Here's Thom McCallum's The Return.
Boomer was found on the side of a highway. That feeling of helplessness connected me and him. He saw that in me, all those shattered pieces inside, just as I saw the scars he wore on the outside. Whatever abuse he suffered in the past doesn't matter anymore. We're starting over. I take in animals like him, hoping I can fix in them all the things that I cannot seem to fix within myself. A discarded creature, once thought worthless, beyond redemption, offers hope.
Hello, Boomer. What are you doing? Let's go outside.
I see the worst of people, of myself, in the violence that is so often visible in them. And I seek the best of people, of myself, in teaching them how to love again and how to be loved. We are their shepherds. We are their keepers. And they are ours.
Come here, buddy. Good God. Come on inside.
Good boy, Boomer. Good boy. We begin to heal from our wounds by tending to theirs. If you pour all that you are into caring for someone other than yourself, love is exactly what you get back. Love is the return. I love to watch Boomer, to watch all the Boomers make human friends and go on adventures and begin to believe that life isn't about crouching and ducking, that it isn't about fear and loneliness, that life isn't the side of a highway, but the actual highway, a road leading to some bright and distant future, a forever home. Boomer found his place in this world, and thanks to him, I'm closer to finding mine. The door is never closed here. It is revolving. There will always be another. They don't understand these words, but I think they know what I mean in a place beyond language. The sound of a voice, the smell of an old t-shirt, the touch of someone who missed them, letting them know that you will always come back for them, and they will always be waiting.
Wow. I mean, this is so beautiful, Tom. The inspiration, perseverance, and strength that animals carry is truly a sentiment of what we need right now. And it's something that we at the Dodo strive to have come through in all of our videos. And you did this masterfully. It's such a beautiful film. Now, being that many people will be inspired to go out and adopt a pet of their own, what is something they should keep in mind when considering adopting a pet into their family?
I think the biggest thing that people need to keep in mind about when you adopt a pet, and when you foster a pet, is that it's not as easy as it seems. It might seem easy on screen, but Big Boomer here took a lot of work to heal. And it does seem easy at a distance. You see people so happy walking their dogs, especially during lockdown, during a pandemic. You see everyone outside walking their dogs, like hanging out. There's a lot more work that happens behind the scenes. So I'm just encouraging people to, one, to foster before they adopt, and two, just don't underestimate the commitment that it takes to make this dog a part of your life.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think right now it's clear, now more than ever, that people are yearning for this sense of purpose and comfort, and this return of love that you get when you help an animal heal, as you discuss in your film. This is something that seems like it would be exactly what people are looking for. With that being said, how do you think the pandemic has affected adoption and fostering?
It's interesting, Mackenzie, because all of the shelters have been empty. All the rescues have been empty. As soon as lockdown happened, I had a mama and 3 babies here at the house. So it's been a beautiful thing to just see the shelters empty when they're normally full. Like, for some reason, everyone was like, I got time on my hands now. It's the time. It's the time to do it. It's the time to commit. And I read an article the other day that said that that like all these shelters had been cleared out to where there were no more dogs left, where people were clamoring for dogs. And that kind of just made my heart sing a little bit, because normally the shelters are full and not a lot of dogs make it out. And I was just overjoyed to hear that, that these shelters were empty. I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't stop. Like Boomer was rescued by Hop Along and Oakland Animal Services, and just they are the guys that kept on going during the pandemic, during the lockdown, when all this was going on. So they, like, the influx of dogs never stopped, which is a crazy thing to think about. But the beautiful thing is that so many animals are finding forever homes because of the time that we had, and because of the longingness to connect. I think that really drove me into, like taking on 3 or 4 dogs.
Yeah, it really makes sense. People are, like you said, are yearning for that connection, and yeah, they wanna feel that comfort, which is something that you feel when you watch this film. I mean, I myself had teary eyes watching this, and you just feel so inspired. And what would you say about animal videos? What is it that never fails to hit viewers right in the feels? It always seems to happen. Clearly, it happened with your film.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. These animals are just so hopeful. Like, every animal that the Dodo profiles is hopeful. Like you can see it in the look in their eyes. And I think the moments that happen on screen that you can see, I think you see it. I think you can actually feel the connection between the animal and the person who's fostering, the person who's adopting, the subject of the film, of whatever Dodo video you're watching. That's the beauty of it, is that you get that connection. Even the inflection in someone's voice, you can feel it. And we were all longing for that. We were all dying to just to feel connected again. And that's kind of what animal videos do. That's what these guys do. They carry so much power and so much hope in their look, and it's an amazing, beautiful thing.
I know it's very obvious in the beginning of the film, the cinematics, you used super steady features and even the slow motion to be able to slow down these real life moments and make them feel like they stretch out forever. What features really allowed you to connect both the intimacy of your story with the final on-screen product? How did you enjoy conveying that to your audience?
I mean, the beauty of a feature like slow-mo or super slow motion is that the characters suddenly dance before your eyes. Like moments that happen in an instant are stretched out forever. And that's a beautiful thing to watch unfold on screen after you've shot something. And I had no idea that a mobile phone could even do that. It was really, I mean, I would love to just have a whole short film just of slow motion movement. It's crazy.
If it's okay, I'd love to ask you some questions from our audience. Tamara M wants to know if it was difficult to film movement with a dog that's just constantly running around.
I mean, dogs are unpredictable. They don't speak English. They don't listen. I mean, they do listen, but they also want to do they're going to do what they're going to do. So yeah, it was tough. It's a lot of like bending over to get certain shots. As you'll see in my film, there's like a lot of low angle tracking shots that are sometimes tough to get because you're bending over and I'm an old man, so my back's not as good as it used to be, but yeah, it's tough to film movement with dogs because they're so unpredictable, and having multiple dogs is chaotic. It's you never know what's going to happen. That's also where the beauty comes from, is like you get to watch these guys interact and be dogs and be normal, and just really cute stuff happens when you're kind of letting the action go.
Animals are special, and it's very, very obvious that Boomer is special, and so are you for making this for him. Thom, I want to thank you so much for dropping by today and letting us enjoy your film and meet Boomer. I'm going to hand it over to Mackenzie to say her farewell, but Thom, pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Sawyer.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Thom. This film is absolutely incredible and inspiring, and is everything we need right now. And I think the way you were able to capture the impact that humans can have on animals, but also the impact that animals can have on us, it was just absolutely beautiful, and it totally restores your faith in the world, and we all need that right now. It was just such a pleasure to watch, and I'm really fortunate to have been able to be a part of this. Thank you so much.
Never change, Boomer. We love you.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Say goodbye, buddy.
Bye, Thom.
Say
Have a
bye.
great day. Bye, Boomer.
Bye, Boomer.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Oh my God, I have to hold back the tears. Thom, that was so beautiful. Seeing you foster that beautiful pup. Chills, honestly. Joining us from PopSugar's editorial team is Lindsay Miller.
Thanks, Dolapo. I'm Lindsay, Deputy Editor at PopSugar, where we're dedicated to sharing stories that inspire, inform, and entertain our audience every day. So I'm really looking forward to watching these short films with you. Kenny's a Los Angeles-based visual artist with vast experience making documentaries and music videos. He's the resident curator for the nonfiction production company XTR, and he's traveled to just about every continent with some of the world's most innovative musicians, including Toblo and Foster the People. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the filmmaker, Kenny Laubbacher. Hey, Kenny.
Hey, Lindsay, thanks so much. Yeah, you nailed it. A little bit on my background is I cut my teeth making documentaries for a nonprofit called Invisible Children, where I also worked as an artist liaison, which connected me with so many artists really throughout the world. So when I left the nonprofit and went on to be doing my own filmmaking, I was making a lot of documentaries and music videos for the different bands I was interacting with, which then I guess ultimately led me to this project, which was so fun getting to work with the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G, where I got to really take both worlds and combine the documentary style with a little bit of the music video style with the phone.
Very cool. Well, let's check out the finished product. We're going to watch our second film. Here's Kenny Laubbacher's Jessica Milady Rivera, Making Science Make Sense.
You never know how your life is preparing you for what's to come. And that is especially true of my life over the last few months. My name is Jessica Milady Rivera. I'm an infectious disease epidemiologist, a science communicator. I'm also a wife and a mother of 2 little toddlers. Growing up in a first-generation American home meant that education was the #1 priority, and I had a few options for my life. One of them was being a doctor. Thankfully, I enjoyed science, but my career took me in a different path. I studied science for most of my life, studied it in undergrad, and I ended up getting recruited to a team of researchers at Georgetown University that were translating reports on emerging infectious disease outbreaks in plants and humans and animals in over 50 languages. And I joined that team to help translate that information. So I was at Georgetown over 10 years ago, and it was in that time that I was noticing that the gap between the science community and the general public was growing and growing, and that's when I was becoming a science communicator. I didn't realize it, but all of my work was preparing me for a global pandemic, and then COVID-19 hit.
Jessica Milady Rivera is a microbiologist and the science communication lead. Great to have you with us today.
So when COVID-19 emerged, my phone was blowing up with all kinds of questions about, does this make sense? What does this mean? And I just started helping my friends parse through the media, parse through the news, and help them understand what was fact from fiction. So I started noticing trends in the questions that I was getting from friends. So I thought, I might as well just put this in social media format so that more people can see it, because I keep getting these text messages. What I also didn't realize was that there was this insatiable hunger for this on social media. And my following back in March went from 1,000 to now over 100,000 in just a few months. It's incredible that my phone has allowed me to do some of the most impactful science communication of my career, all while being home with my family. That also propelled me into different kinds of platforms, and I have been an expert contributor for a few networks. The only thing that should be driving the timeline is safety and efficacy data. Science isn't finished until it's communicated. In infectious diseases, when an outbreak happens, you can almost predict infodemic outbreaks to happen too. So I was kind of combating both. I was trying to help people understand the science and try to help people understand the way to talk about science. You don't have to be a scientist to understand science. And I think that in a time right now where nobody's talking about anything else, we all need to understand so that we can all make better choices. If I can help people make more informed decisions that are based on fact and not fear, then I've done a good job.
Wow. So obviously Jessica has such an incredible story of this moment as well. I'm just curious to know, what really struck you about her, and why did you think this story would make for such a good film?
Yeah, I've known Jessica for over 10 years now. And so when I had this opportunity to, shoot something about somebody, she, her story is just so of the moment of how her life has played out, perfectly preparing her for this time when we need people who are communicating science to us so that we can apply that to our lives. And she's also just so brilliant and articulate and hilarious that I just knew if I stuck a camera on her, I was set up for success.
Well, and obviously her work has changed so much given the pandemic. And I'm sure as a filmmaker, it's had that same, maybe not the same, but a similar impact on your own work. So I'm just curious what sort of parallels you were able to draw between the two of you.
Yeah, I love this question because I'm just so honored anytime I get to draw parallels between Jessica and I, because she's so brilliant. But yeah, her the art of her communication and how she communicated on social media grew the deeper she got into it. She was really responsive to people informing her on how to be more effective with her communication, and it was fun having a front row seat watching her following grow from 1,000 to now it's like 120,000 or something like that, because I just watched her craft get better and more effective. And it's just something I hope to always apply to my art and my filmmaking, is just pushing myself into the next level of how to portray what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And Jessica's story really does show how social media can be used for good. So what most impressed you once you really got to know her and her work?
Yeah, when we were shooting this, I would feel so bad every time I'd hit her up because she's a mother of two. She's got, full-time job. She's also being a liaison to all these different outlets. Plus, she's running her own social media so that she can keep, the community that follows her informed. And it's just insane how much she does with such, limited time or, the same time as me. And so it was just incredibly impressive. And then that combined with this moment that we're in of, just needing to know more about what's happening with the science in the world because it affects our lives so much. It was just kind of, the perfect storm of a moment to sort of get to highlight her.
Kenny, hi. I just gotta say, first off, I love the film, the lighting, the camera control, everything about the cinematics. Did you use a pro mode feature or advanced camera controls, glitch effect? How are you able to pull this off?
Yeah, thanks, Sawyer. That means a lot coming from you. Yeah, Pro Mode was my best friend in this shoot. I was able to, most cameras that you're shooting with, they are, phone cameras. They're automatic. And what's so cool about using Pro Mode is you can totally control the ISO, you can control the shutter speed, you can control the white balance. You just have so much control over any shoot that you're doing. So, and you can lock it off, into this manual mode. So obviously with my thing, we went over the top with lighting and, just getting fun and fancy with it. And so I couldn't have done that with any other phone.
Yeah, it looks
And then
incredible.
thanks, man. And yeah, and then there was also like other bonus things like, the glitch effect and there's this other blur effect where you can kind of blur out the background and keep your subject in focus. So it just afforded me a lot of creativity, really.
Or you could tell because the cinematics looked right, and in filmmaking, it's so important to be able to convey the visual side of it as well. But aside from visuals, I mean, so much of who we are as filmmakers comes through in our work. How did your own personal background affect your style for this project?
Um, Thanks for saying that. Yeah, so I guess really being able to marry the documentary style with the sort of music video style to hopefully make the science of everything a little more exciting, affected it aesthetically. And then really how my past, like I said at the beginning, I cut my teeth in the nonprofit world, which I was really lucky to work with really creative people who didn't have much ego. All of our goal was to get the job done. And so we formed this, idea that the best idea wins. Meaning when we're doing something creative, it doesn't matter if the idea comes from an intern or the CEO or somebody passing by on the street. If it's a good idea and it's the best idea, let's run with that one. And so with this project specifically, I was able to collaborate with my friends at Ridge Productions and work with a really incredible DP and editor. Jessica informed a lot of, the story and just being able to lean into when somebody has a good idea that pops up really helped me with this piece.
That's awesome. It's obvious that it worked out. And now I kind of wanted to reflect this on our audience and let them ask you some questions. Jose T wanted to know, what do you think drove people to necessarily follow Jessica's story?
Yeah, I think Jessica's story right now is just one that is so relevant because of how it's playing out in the current pandemic. And I think she gained her following just because A, she's brilliant and she's done the work and she has the background in terms of information, but then how she communicates that information. Right now it's where everything is so polarizing. It's cool to have somebody who's A, kind of just about the data. She's so data focused and data driven. But then how she communicates that to us is so soft and friendly, and she's not shoving anything down your throat, because she just wants it to be available to people so that they can then take the science and then go make their own informed decisions. So I think just that sort of generous offering up of information, the way she does it lovingly and caringly, I think people identify with it.
I agree. Speaking of information, though, Asha F wants to know, do you find that people tend to be engaging more with this information-driven content?
Yeah, I think they do. I think Jessica's story is such a perfect example. This sort of information is so relevant to our lives. It affects whether or not we travel. It affects how we work, how we interact with our friends and family. And so we want to be informed, and we want to, protect those around us that we love. So I think people are hungry for it, and you could see it in Jessica's story.
Roman wants to know, and this might be a hard question, but out of all of your world travels as a filmmaker, what is your most memorable story? What pops out to you as something special?
That is a hard question.
No pressure.
I recently went on a trip to the Grand Canyon with one of my favorite writers, and we spent 4 days on this trip with, a group of people that were just in love with this guy's writing, and we camped all along the way, had a tent set up on a ridge as the sun rose over the Grand Canyon, and we're able to listen to excerpts from his book, and that's not out yet, and things like that. And I think just because that one just happened and it was so beautiful and amazing, and I also had the opportunity to shoot it, I think that one stands out for me.
Kenny, thank you so much for joining us. And let me just say congratulations to you, but not only you, the whole team, everyone that worked on this project with you. It looks incredible. And I want to just thank you for having us here with you today.
Thank you. It's such an incredible story. Glad for more people to see it.
Man, thanks for the opportunity to share it.
Wow, I can't believe we're living through times like this. Watching this video just reminds me how thankful we are for people like Jessica who are pushing out the correct information and helping us really deal with tough times like this. Such an impactful film. Thank you, Kenny, for joining us tonight. Now, let's check out the next film from PopSugar.
Thanks, Dolapo. Our next filmmaker, Nikki Sun, is an on-camera personality and freelance producer, director, cinematographer, content strategist, and editor. And she's passionate about people, filmmaking, and technology. So for the last decade, she's been amplifying marginalized voices both in front of and behind the camera, specifically spotlighting Asian American talent on screen and women and Black and Indigenous and people of color filmmakers behind the scenes. So I'd like to introduce you to filmmaker Nikki Sun, who will tell us a little bit more about herself. Hey, Nikki.
Hi, Lindsay. It's so great to be here with you and Sawyer. Just a little bit more about my background. Yes, I've been privileged to work in media for the past decade. And the one thing I would say about that is I've built my own channel from the ground up myself. I don't really have a traditional media background, so very much of a self-starter, but I work both in professional or traditional and non-traditional forms of media, starting off at a television station, producing and hosting and interviewing for shows. And over the years, I realized that, as a one-woman band, there's so much that happens behind the scenes that didn't really get showcased on my personal channel. So I started another channel called Technically Speaking, which is a play off of my name and the pun technically speaking, and to really help educate and provide information and knowledge and a behind the scenes look of what goes on with the cameras that I use, the gear that I use, and hopefully at the same time make it more comfortable for people in BIPOC and Asian American communities, especially also women, to feel comfortable that they can do and pursue this career too, because it's very male dominated. But I think it's about time that we add our voices and shift and really call on our male allies to allow us to have a conversation to expand our perspective. So being selected for this filmmaking project means a whole bunch to me. And I really thank Samsung and PopSugar for allowing me to shoot my first film entirely on the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G phone. It was such an amazing experience, and I'm so excited for you to see what I did with it.
Well, the outcome is beautiful. So now let's go ahead and check out our third film, which is Nikki Sun's Eslo, Love in the Time of COVID.
I always imagine like, oh, if I date someone, I'm gonna date this person for like 2 years, and then maybe I'll think about marriage, and then we'll take those steps slowly. But then dating Esther, I saw that like that timeline can easily change, especially in 2020. Hi, I'm Paulo.
And I'm Esther.
And we're engaged.
And together we make Eslo.
Or Paulster.
But we like Eslo.
Sure, we like Eslo.
We met through a media company. I thought Paulo was super loud and obnoxious and flirty.
A lot of like, good job, you know, like you're a great person, you know, yeah, you know. And then in 2019, I came to the US to work with a production company that I'm at right now. My boss, he told me, hey, why don't you think about Esther? You know, now you're here in the US, you need to find love.
Because he's Brazilian, because I'm American, there are differences. So being able to learn together and like have those conversations have been really helpful. He brings a very different perspective.
In the beginning, I thought she was like interested, but she wasn't. So I just kept being very optimistic, like, hey, let's go out, let's do this. Eventually, I just kept on insisting, and then she started to open her heart too. And then on Christmas Eve, I kind of like told her like, hey, I like you. And I held her hand without like sort of telling her. I knew that she was interested because if I held her hand and she didn't back away, I think that she also had the same feelings.
I mean, I think for us early on, even before COVID hit seriously, we had like loosely and lightly talked about marriage. Dating for a month in COVID feels like dating for 6 months. So it felt like it had escalated because we were spending so much time together, and the time was always like one-on-one. We started cooking a lot because we were eating at home every day.
It's been a good time to experiment. I don't think we would be able to like cook this much together if we weren't in quarantine or in lockdown. Like after 2 months, we already felt like we were dating for like almost a year. We're like, oh my goodness, we know each other so well already in such a short amount of time. Eventually, I was able to gather all the resources, all the friends to help me out, and I was able to propose to her on October 3rd. Last year, I was in Brazil. I didn't even imagine I was gonna come to the US. Everything worked out. I came, met Esther, COVID hit, and I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen in 2020? And so much has happened, so much has changed. Even though COVID isn't gone, we can go into the next year knowing that we have each other and we can get through it. And that's what's important.
It's really such a beautiful love story and so of this moment. Congratulations, Nikki. I just want to ask you, you know, how do you think this year has changed the way in which viewers experience and engage with video and film?
I think it's more important than ever. And I think now that we're all video calling each other because we can't travel right now or see each other in person, our phones have been literally like, if it's not charged with me today, I ain't going anywhere, because I always feel like this allows me to be so attached to my family and my friends and the world in such a feeling sometimes when we are alone and maybe isolated. So I think being able to showcase these stories through video, being able to connect with people through phone and video calls, it has allowed us to have a more authentic and closer connection with people. I think it's not weird to hop on a video call anymore with people. I think a lot of folks were like, I'm not going to be on video, like, but it's real. I think because we're all experiencing this very unusual time, there is more chance for being creative and how to stay connected during this time. And I'm so glad that, phones allow us to do that, and it allows us to continue telling meaningful stories with the phone. So I think everybody being on their phones, video calling, watching content on their phones, it's made the viewing experience all the more crucial and important. So it's really nice to see like the Galaxy S20 FE play a role. It has definitely played a role in how I told my story today.
And, what was it about them that really impressed you the most when it came to the way they did respond to COVID-19 and the pandemic as a couple and as individuals too?
I would say as a couple, their story and just asking them the questions that I did is very clear that communication is key, especially during this unusual time. I think for them, communication only improved when they were together. And as I was listening and observing how they were interacting as they were saying it during the interview, like I interviewed them for about 45 minutes and you only get to see 3 minutes, but like with the line of questioning that I did, there were other things that I wanted to showcase, like mannerisms, like how they care for each other, how they show up for each other, how they make each other feel listened and heard during this time. And I could tell immediately that they just have found each other through another form of communication. And that's really just listening and being able to adapt and be flexible, understanding, and being really patient during this time, but also being creative with their dates, right? I mean, it's beyond just communication at this point. It's every second matters. And, for them, dating for 1 month felt like 6 months. So it didn't surprise me that they ended up getting engaged. I was surprised because normally it takes more than a year personally for me to get to know someone. But I think dating in the time of COVID has really escalated a lot of relationships, and it has also ended a lot of relationships. But I'm so glad that they found each other. And what I would like to say is Apollo locked it down in lockdown. So that's really cool.
Put that on a coffee mug and you're good to go. I mean, that's one thing I really loved about your project so much is this is a story about people. It's a story about love. Regardless of what people see about us on the exterior, this is about people connecting on the interior. And I think intimacy in it is really remarkable. Speaking of intimacy, that's hard to capture on big cameras. Coming from bigger format cameras, did you have any pleasant surprises? Anything when you were shooting with the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE 5G? Was there anything that you were like, oh, this is just nice, it's easier?
Absolutely. I'm so used to working with a myriad of different cameras. And normally when I'm shooting by myself or on crews, it's like you have these giant cameras that really have to keep swapping out the batteries every 2 hours. You need a whole film crew for lighting, sound, audio. And it was really nice to go in with the Galaxy S20 FE and just do it everything by myself. I mean, so comfortable being a one-woman band that having a phone such as the Galaxy S20 FE in my hands and being able to do all the things that I wanted to convey and showcase was incredible. For instance, it had 4K at 24 frames per second, which is a very cinematic frame rate for a cinematographers. They also had 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second at 4K. And being able to access the pro mode in the phone was also a pleasant surprise. And adding external audio was also another pleasant surprise. So they have made this phone really a delight and a joy for filmmakers like myself and other content creators to really feel like they can capture a film with the same cinematic quality as the normal cameras that we use nowadays. And on top of that, this is a camera that's accessible, easily accessible in your pocket. So you're thinking about, can I tell a story that's going to be, noteworthy when I'm at this restaurant or just going on a hike? Absolutely. And I hope that I was able to show that, yeah, you don't need fancy big equipment. The best camera is the camera that you have. And for a lot of us, it is our phones. And so being able to capture all these moments with a phone that would be comparable when utilizing big cameras, that was really exciting for me.
I've always said the best camera that you can have is the camera that is always on you so that you never miss a real moment. Um, Something
Yes,
about this
facts.
project that really stood out to me was the individual point of you as a filmmaker. Tell me your own personal goals as a filmmaker, and then also what does it mean for you to be a woman and person of color in filmmaking, and is there anything you would like to see happen with your work? Is there anything that you would like to accomplish?
Absolutely. I think, starting out being more in front of the camera and interviewing a lot of Asian American artists, talent, entrepreneurs really sparked from the need to see more representation, to see someone like me doing this. I think when I started out, we had a thing called YouTube that allowed us to really put stories without having to get it cleared by networks. We were able to tell
Yeah.
our own stories. And I connected a lot with independent filmmakers because here were people who didn't see themselves in mainstream media, who wanted to do something about it, who say like, hey, we exist, we live here, but yet we don't see faces like ours on screen. So it has been a mission for the past decade, not only to amplify marginalized voices, but also to take action to do it. And what I realized that when I'm in front of the camera, it's great. I have a voice. As an actor, great. But it's a script that I am waiting to be given. And I wanted to switch that narrative. It's like
Yeah.
storytelling. I want to be able to tell it from my perspective. I want to know how to edit. I want to know how to shoot because I want to know how to write because these are the people, the casting directors, the writers that are writing these stories to allow us to have multidimensional characters, not stereotypes continuously over and over as an Asian American male or female. So it was really important for me to switch and have this come to aha moment where I was like, if I want to change the way that we're portrayed, I need to be behind the camera. I need to tell the story the way that I want to, and really do it in a way that hopefully honors an authentic voice from my perspective, because every person's perspective is so different, even if you're in the same race or ethnicity. But speaking alongside to that, I do understand that being a woman and also a person of color in filmmaking is very hard. It's very rare. And there's so many that are pursuing this journey that are not getting the shine that they deserve. And what I want to do, especially with my tech channel, is to really highlight and spotlight these voices that I feel that are so important. And so for me, it was very important to tell a story that I would feel represented just a modern day couple. And I hopefully through this, we will be able to drop those labels in the beginning of saying that I'm an Asian filmmaker or that I'm a woman filmmaker. At the end of the day, I just want to be known as a filmmaker who tells authentic, amazing stories. And you're hiring me for that and not a diversity quota. So I really thank Samsung and PopSugar for finding me and giving me this opportunity to tell a story the way that I wanted to tell it.
Well, I commend you for that, but also for being the change that you wish to see. For making, I'm sure everyone out there, whether they identify with you or not, they hear your message and it's a true one. And it's one that I hope you have great accomplishments with. Taking some questions from our audience, we got one from Alana. She wanted to know what were some of the lighting tricks used when filming? How were you able to pull off these nighttime shots? What was the trick behind that?
You know what's crazy is this is why I love the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. It's like I didn't really need a lot of lights for the nighttime shots. Normally, I'm very hesitant in shooting at nighttime because I'm like, oh, the noise, the grain is going to be like super hard to fix in post. And the night mode and the night hyperlapse was actually really cool to shoot with. I kid you not, because obviously we try to get away with I don't want to be like, this is such a brand thing. But Esther and Paulo, I let them play with the phone to take selfies as I was just filming, and they were just really impressed, like high key impressed with the quality of not needing a flash to get some of the night shots that we did. It was just a beautiful low light setting. The pro mode on the phone is amazing. I can adjust the ISO, I can adjust the aperture, I can adjust all these things that normally I wouldn't really have access to on a phone. These are like kind of a filmmaker's dream and a content creator's dream, is being able to play with the depth of field and to play with all these other factors. So I think, lighting, I didn't really have to do much. It was actually the daytime scenes that I added light to, just to give it more of a softer focus. But other than that, I didn't really have to use that much lights in the nighttime scene. I was very impressed by it.
Yeah, I was too. The low light is universally tricky when it comes to any camera, let alone camera on a smartphone. And I think they were some of the most beautiful images from the entire short film. Sebastian wanted to know, how did you decide to tell this story in particular? Was there anything else that you thought about, or why was this story special to you?
I think when I was starting to cast a couple, well, first of all, let's back up and let's be real personal here. I think at the beginning of 2020, we all set goals for ourselves. And to me personally, if I may be so bold to put it out there, this is not like a dating ad or anything. I'm just saying, I was like, okay, it's 2020. Maybe it's time that I open myself up to dating myself. And then the COVID hit. And I'm like, okay, how is this going to happen? Like, are we just waiting until 2021, 2022? And beyond just, love in the time of COVID, it's also about genuine connection. So while I did pick a couple that I felt like they met and, their relationship escalated because of COVID, I also wanted to tell like a story of connection. So this is not just for singles out there or like who want like a love story during this time, because I think any story during this time is going to be like, oh, that's one for the books. That was 2020. I remember that. I think, again, it's just really focusing on the connection that you can find with somebody, because it's definitely a lot harder to do all the things that we're used to and find genuine connection. And honestly, in a way, COVID has made it more meaningful in a way. Like, you're not just going to meet somebody, swipe left, swipe right, and like meet them. It's like, did you take a test? Were you negative? Because if you didn't, like, this is not happening. And there's also a level of trust that you have to gain as well when you're dating, because you have to have some sort of trust in order to meet up, because you might catch COVID. Again, we want to catch feelings, not COVID.
Well, if we learned one thing, we learned if you stick two people in a house for 6 months, you will find out if they're soulmates or not. Thank you, Nikki, for joining us. I just had the best time here today. Lindsay, I'll let you take it away.
Oh my gosh, likewise. I'm just so excited for even more people to get the chance to see this film. It's such a breath of fresh air. Congratulations, Nikki, and thank you both.
Yes, thank you so much, Lindsay, Sawyer. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, don't we all love in quarantine? That was super adorable. Thank you so much, Nikki and Lindsay, for joining us tonight. Last but certainly not least, let's check out the next film from Thrillist.
Joining us from Thrillist editorial team is Audra Pace.
Hey, Sawyer, what's up? I am the creative director at Thrillist. I'm Audra. I am so excited to watch this short film today and excited to introduce you to Trishna, who is an LA-based producer. She specializes in travel, food, and the human experience. So she is on brand for us as could be. She's also the founder of She Only Lives Once, or Solo, not YOLO. It's a travel brand that is dedicated to empowering women of all backgrounds to explore solo in the pursuit of adventure, self-discovery, and social impact. Solo is interesting because it connects this community of over 40,000 people that are in the tourism, culinary, and lifestyle worlds all around the world. So with no further ado, please welcome Trishna Patel.
Hi, Audra. Hi, Sawyer. Thank you for having me, and hello, Thrillist family.
Hey, so thanks so much for joining us. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about Solo and your background, how you came to make this film today?
Yeah, sure. So yes, I am a producer, host, photographer, writer, basically the jack of all trades. It's kind of what you have to be these days. crew of one. I've been in the media and publishing industry for the last 12 years and had variety of roles at different places. But no matter where I was working, I was always making time to cover the things that I wanted to cover. And so that's kind of when the travel blogging started and Trishlist was born. And that's when She Only Lives Once was born as well. I was noticing that when I was traveling on my own, I was having the time of my life. I wanted to travel alone because I didn't want to wait for other people's schedules to clear up, and I wanted to get out there and see the world. So instead of praying that the trip would go okay, I ended up finding out that I was really having these incredible experiences, and I wanted to share that with people. So I just think that we're kind of the best versions of ourselves, where it really shows our true character when we're kind of off doing our own thing by ourselves. I think that you have to become really resourceful. You're really open to new experiences that you aren't necessarily open to when you're with a group. So I think it's pretty incredible, and more people should do it. And I actually think it's very similar to filmmaking by yourself too. I think that when you're a crew of one, you often have to be able to think and pivot on your toes, and you're open to different things and different scenes and different topics when you are filming solo. So it's been a great ride so far.
Awesome. Well, definitely wanting to jump right in then to this story. I'm so excited to watch it and share it with everyone. Let's check it out. Trishna Patel's The Culver Hotel, coming back from COVID-19.
Tucked away in a tiny plaza on Venice Boulevard, under blossom trees and hanging tea lights, surrounded by vintage bird cages and succulents, people are eating, drinking, and enjoying live music. Just turn around. I'm at Le Jardin, the new garden patio at the historic Culver Hotel, founded in 1924. It's a romantic but rare scene, given the times. So I sit down with General Manager Alfredo Debano to learn how this hidden gem came to be.
The Culver Hotel is the heartbeat of Culver City and of Los Angeles. It is a place that is stuck in time and hasn't changed much, with the exception of the buildings that go up and go down around it. It truly is the original America, what the American dream was. It's a beacon of hope. When the pandemic came and we closed our doors, it sort of felt like the heartbeat stopped in the city. So we all got together and said, what is that we're going to do after the virus lifts? What are we going to do when we actually come together? And we focused on 4 pillars. That's service, food, beverage, and ambiance. We serve 2 meal periods. That's brunch and dinner. We have eclectic American cuisine. I like to call it that because you'll see a variety of things. The response from the community has been overwhelmingly positive.
Reservations for Le Jardin fill up fast. It's an example of how restaurants and hotels across the country use their creativity and resources to stay in business.
When we closed our doors, and once we realized that was inevitable, let's find a way to freshen up the hotel and get ready for once we reopen. And we painted walls, we redid floors, we redid rooms, we purchased new furniture, and we found ways to bring hope and life back into the Culver.
Chef Ben Diaz and hotel staff also prepared 100 meals for a nonprofit called Feed Culver.
Feed Culver is an organization where we take donations and we actually use those donations to go to restaurants to purchase meals for those that are less fortunate. The wonderful thing about this is those donations actually assisted in keeping restaurants open and people employed. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats, and if we're open and we're doing well, those that are around us are also going to do well.
The reopening was magical.
When the Culver Hotel reopens, Angelinos can expect a unique and memorable experience through compelling history and inspired design.
The more time I spent at Le Jardin, I realized as far as silver linings go, there's more than meets the eye. Yes, there was this gorgeous new space, my very delicious cocktail, and groups of friends that were back together again. But more importantly, there was an energy and a shift in perspective that I felt long after I left.
Every staff member that works here actually wants to be here. It makes you really feel like you have purpose. You feel like you belong. And if I can make them all feel special, or make one of them feel better, then I think I've done something for the day. And I love it.
So chic, Culver Hotel, and super inspiring and optimistic. So I really loved watching this. It's hopeful, and it's this fun insidery kind of look at a place that's very well known and beloved. Something that Thrillist is very dialed into specifically coming out of COVID-19 or still really being in it, is the optimism and the sort of ingenuity and never give up, never let go, always find something to do-ness. And I think this film really captures it. We really love when a story that we like to tell gets into the history of a place. That's very important to us. The little overlooked details that maybe people don't notice right away. And then most importantly, the people behind it. We really think that many of these industries, the culinary industry, the hospitality industry, are about community. And it's about the people there who make it work. So this story did a great job of touching on each of those things, which leads me to my first question. What was it that inspired you to tell this story about this place at this time?
Yeah, you know what's so funny is that I was actually born down the street from the Culver Hotel many, many moons ago. And so I've been coming to the Culver Hotel for as long as I can remember. I've been frequenting the neighborhood, that community, specifically that block. So I've really seen the neighborhood change for the better. And when COVID-19 hit and places in the restaurant industry and the hotel industry were changing, I was really keen on and figuring out and sharing with others what people were doing, how people were pivoting, rebranding, digging deep, and finding ways to move forward. And so that couldn't have come at a better time. And like I said, I think there's more than meets the eye with this story. I think you'll see beautiful food, and you'll see a beautiful garden and music and a beautiful hotel with lots of history. But what really is going to drive the piece is the people behind it, the staff, Alfredo, the general manager, and really humanizing this entire experience.
There are a ton of cute setup shots and really nice detail shots in here, little moments with cocktails and some of the decor. Talk to me about what caught your eye and then how you decided to capture it.
You know, I'm really drawn to bold colors, unique perspectives, and things that really pop on camera. So when I'm filming a room and I'm filming inanimate objects, I really try to get unique angles. And I really what I was able to do when I had the phone was, crouch down a little lower, get up on a chair and get that really tight shot of the chandelier. So again, these were angles and shots that I was able to get because I had the phone. And so it really provided some really great, interesting shots that I never would have gotten before.
Speaking of that, did you experience any battery life? Is such an important part of filmmakers' lives. There is nothing worse than, as you know, shooting and seeing that little flashing light coming up, because after the camera turns off, nothing we capture is translated to our story. Did you have any happy accidents? What was your experience like shooting on with battery life of a mobile phone?
I think that as filmmakers, we have all been in a situation where you're about to capture something epic. You can't believe you're about to capture this, and all of a sudden you see that low battery life come up, and it literally makes you want to hurl. I think we've all been there. With this particular camera, with the Galaxy S20 FE, that wasn't even on my radar. I really could rest easy knowing that I would never run out of battery life. I would never have to, step away and charge up or carry a battery pack on me. That makes it really cumbersome. So it was incredible. I cannot say enough about the battery life, because that's something that's, it's usually my Achilles heel when I shoot, and especially when you're shooting on your own. You don't really have time to step away and charge up. So it was great. I can't say enough about the battery life.
Well, that's good news, because battery life is stamina, and that's sometimes we're on set a lot of hours, and that can be useful. Well, besides battery life, did the Galaxy S20 FE create any unique opportunities to capture the intimacy of these rooms or encounters with other people? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, what's so funny? No matter how great you are on camera, no matter how comfortable you are on camera, when that camera rig comes out and you have a crew of 2 or 3 people, people freeze up, and you oftentimes miss these authentic interactions when you do bust out that camera. So what I really found to be the case in this when using my phone was that I was really able to capture these authentic moments, the banter back and forth, smiles, laughter, inside jokes, things that people wouldn't maybe do if I had the normal camera out. So it really helped with the intimacy of the piece, feeling like you were actually there. I think that perspective is invaluable, and you're really able to do that when you have the phone.
I mean, you're literally getting people to bring their guard down. It's a huge perk a lot of people don't speak on. But you actually used a lot of features when shooting your feature. The food mode. You used the feature food mode for a lot of this project, didn't you? Because it looked incredible.
I think that food content is so difficult to shoot normally. So shout out to all you food bloggers out there. That's no joke. So yes, when I got the Galaxy S20 FE, I was so excited to find out they had an actual feature called the food mode. Basically what it does, it gives you a couple of really cool options. My favorites are you can just click on this little wheelhouse and it allows you to adjust the temperature from cool to warm and adjust the color, which I think is really, really helpful for shooting food content, because sometimes the plate will come out, it looks gorgeous, and it's not quite translating onto the screen. So that really helps with that. And I really did like this feature called the Radial Blur, which blurs out the plate and the background so your food is in focus, front and center. And it was a game changer. I won't ever shoot food without the food mode anymore. So
food content's hard. I mean, we have our nose, our ears. I mean, we have all of these senses to take in the food we love. Just seeing it, we need food mode. But let's actually pivot and take some questions from our audience. Dre really wanted to know, how did you determine what footage to keep in the edit, and how did you know what to throw out?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dre, for your question. Yes, that's always really hard. I think when you're tackling a topic like the Culver Hotel, and there's so much history, and there's relationship between the community and the hotel, and then you have this COVID element, you can really take the story in different directions. And so what I really had lead the way was a question I always ask myself, which is, can you Google that? And if the answer is yes, I try to stay away from it, because the last thing I want to do is regurgitate anything that you can find out through a Google search. What I want to do is I want to take you through a restaurant and a hotel, and I want you to feel the energy of the people. I want you to understand, what they're doing, what emotions are wrapped up behind this. And so I really let that lead the way. And for me, it's definitely been, how I tell stories.
So Delaney wants to know, how did you actually adjust knowing that you'd be specifically shooting this on a mobile phone? Is there anything you had to do specific?
Knowing that I would have a mobile phone to shoot on, and an amazing mobile phone that looks like you've shot with Scorsese next to you, I was really able to really uncover really intimate moments between Alfredo and his guests. And I really allowed for those moments to take precedence. I think, when you have a camera and a traditional camera rig, those aren't moments that you necessarily get to capture. And so I really allowed for those things to happen, and I let those lead the way. So I had a great time with that.
Well, Trishna, Audra, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've had the best time. How about you?
This was a blast. Trishna, so awesome to get to meet you and watch this really fun film. Happy to be here.
Yes, guys, I had an amazing time. Thank you, Audra. Thank you, Sawyer. And thank you to my Thrillist family and Samsung. I had an incredible time making this documentary.
And to everyone at home who joined us here tonight, we hope you enjoyed the projects and maybe took away a little bit of knowledge or insight about the filmmaking process. Luckily for us, the power of story is stronger now more than ever before. And we want to thank you for just celebrating that with us here tonight. This has been the Samsung Virtual Film Festival. Have a great night.
Again, my name is Dolapo, and thank you all for coming and watching these powerful films. They've all taught us about how this year has changed us, what it means to come together, and how we can help each other. Thank you so much to our amazing filmmakers for your creativity. And thank you as well to Samsung for joining us. Without the Galaxy S20 FE 5G, none of these films would have been possible. Good night, everyone.